immigrants are not the enemy, hate is. We heard a lot about doing things the quote-unquote legal way. And I think there's just a real lack of understanding of what that legal way looks like. So we're standing on Miccosukee land, so I want to first acknowledge that. So the folks who came here stole the land from some people who were already here. Okay, fine, they're established. Fast forward, we're a nation. Now, people are coming over from Ellis Island, and some of those first immigrants were legally admitted with no paperwork, no passports, based on what class they were in. If they were in first class, they asked a couple questions and they were in. If they were in the lower classes, they had to undergo some of the medical examinations we heard about to see and mark whether they were mentally sound, etc. Fast forward, we still don't have any immigration laws, but we start off with the Chinese Exclusion Act, because that's when we decide we need to start discriminating against people. And that continues on with our current immigration system. So for people who have some kind of misguided idea that there's an equal line for everybody, you are sadly mistaken. Depending on what country you are from, that wait can be anywhere from a couple of months to in excess of 10 years. And guess what? You know which countries have the in excess of 10 years? The ones that are primarily black and brown. If you did not know that, now you know. In addition to that, if we're talking about the border and who we're targeting, the immigrants that were mentioned in the debate so far are coming from countries that, quite frankly, are considered white in this country. Let's say that. Let's acknowledge that. And I need you to understand that there is a palpable difference between making sure that your child gets to come to a country where she gets to shake a man's hand versus somebody coming to this country because they're trying to make sure that their child doesn't get raped, kidnapped, or literally bombed to pieces. These are things that thankfully most of us in this room have no experience in. But you know who does? I do. I have worked with refugees in Africa and the Middle East fleeing exactly the kinds of things that we're talking about now. People who have lost people in situations that you could not even imagine. And when I say that the reason we have these refugee laws is precisely because during Nazi Germany, every country was doing what we're talking about, closing its borders to the Jews who are literally fleeing for their lives, much like many of our counterparts in Latin America and the Caribbean are fleeing for their lives right now from gun violence, many of those guns from which are coming from these United States. So, if you want to talk about what the legal versus illegal experience is for an undocumented person, let me put that in perspective, because that's the subject of the bill. People who are here, quote unquote, illegally. These are people whose parents may have brought them here when they were 2 years old. They didn't know that they were legal or not legal until it came time to apply for school. That's when they learned that there was a problem with their status. These are people who have been here in excess of 10, 15, 20 years. They own businesses. They've graduated from schools. They're lawyers. They're doctors. They are doing and contributing to our society in meaningful ways. They are not the people that some people want to say it's the news media that is vilifying them, and I will correct that, because it's not the news media, it's legislation like this. It's legislation like this that puts a target on the back. The same way Nazi Germany put a target on the back of Jewish people with their xenophobia, this is the kind of legislation that leads to 5 people dying in Texas because somebody's out hunting illegals. People are not illegal. Just because your law determines that somebody should or should not be someplace, whether it's a fugitive slave law or people who had to escape through the Underground Railroad, or somebody who needs help, whether it's because of a Good Samaritan or because they are trying to get to church. It is my moral responsibility to help them cross whatever border they need to get the help that they need. If somebody is dying on the floor, are you going to tell me that that first responder cannot take them into Florida to get them the care that they need with federal dollars that already pay for it because of the narrative that you're trying to propagate, I reject that. Somebody tried to say that we're compassionate, and I'm going to say that it's selective compassion. I'll let you decide how we select. Matthew 19:13-14. So in that chapter, there's some kids trying to get to Jesus. He just finished preaching to the crowd, and the Pharisees are doing what Pharisees do, and they're like, what about the law? What about the law? And he answers their question about the law, and it had to do with gender stuff. In case you're curious, you can go back and read that chapter. But you fast forward, and then in verse 13, you have, then the little children were brought to him, that he might put his hands on them and pray. But the disciples rebuked him. But Jesus said, let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them, for such is the kingdom of heaven. I spoke to you yesterday about our obligations under the Bible. So if you claim you believe in the Bible, you either believe in the Bible or you believe in all this other stuff. You can't have both. This is your moment to choose. So either we choose to love them, we choose to feed them, we choose to accept them, or we do not. That being said,
debate segment having been expired, you can finish your sentence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is about people.
All right, let's
Thank you.
stop there.